Diana.
Good morning, Commissioner Diana Helm, Clackamas County.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell.
Mike Mitchell, Oregon City Commission.
Mr. Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. John Sarah, TriMet Government Affairs.
Mr. Brashear.
Good morning, everyone. Dwight Brashear, your friendly neighborhood transit director from the beautiful city of Wilsonville.
Mayor O'Neill.
From the beautiful city of Wilsonville, Mayor O'Neill.
Ms. Baumgardner.
Good morning, Mary Baumgardner from Westland City Council.
Okay. And across the bottom, I don't see pictures, but Josh.
Good morning, everybody. Josh Callahan, Happy Valley City Council President.
Okay. Counselor Anderson.
Counselor Anderson from the city of Milwaukee. I'll be driving today, so be off camera.
Metro Counselor Lewis.
Christine Lewis, Metro Council District 2. Still trying to get my kid out the door. I'll be on camera in a minute.
And Counselor Pratt. I see Valerie Pratt from Tualatin is here. She indicated she'd be on the phone. So it may be more difficult to go on and off audio for her. All right, first on our agenda is JPAC updates. I believe that would be Mayor Joe Buck, and he is not here yet, so we'll skip that one. Trent, do you think we should go ahead and start with the TriMet level of service study report?
Absolutely do. And let me move over Tom Mills. And John, if you want to help me with anybody else who's supposed to be coming over. I think it's you and Tom, right?
Nope, it's just Tom and I today.
All right. And y'all have screen sharing ability if you need it.
I believe Tom has his own slides and we'll be sharing those.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So sorry. Let me pull up the slides. Here we go. Wait, what happened? Just do that. Okay. Can you all see the slides?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to try putting it in presentation mode. Okay, there we go. Well, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name is Tom Mills. I'm the Director of Mobility, Planning, and Policy at TriMet. I apologize. I'm fighting a cold this morning, so if I cough or take a sip of water, I apologize in advance. Today, I'm going to talk to you about TriMet's level of service study. This was a study that was asked of us by Commissioner Savas at the end of the HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee process for the FY 24-25 plan. Excuse me, no, at the end of the FY 26-27 planning process. Commissioner Savas has been a member of that committee for 8 years, and his term finally just ended on December. Well, at the end of this year, his term will be over. So before I jump into the plan, I want to talk a little bit about the constraints that we, TriMet, but really all transit districts, Dwight, even including you, we all face when planning service. And frankly, as public servants managing budgets, we all face these, right? We don't have enough revenue to do everything we want, right? So TriMet doesn't have enough revenue to serve all origins and all destinations at all times of the day. We know it, we know that, we accept that, but that means we have to make some decisions. The first decision we make as a transit provider is that we are going to be mass transit, meaning we're going to group people together to ride together in one vehicle. We don't have enough revenue to do kind of Lyft or Uber type service to get people direct trips from their homes to their destinations. We have to group people up. So as a result, because we're mass transit, we provide fixed route services and we use large vehicles, 40-foot buses generally. It also means we can't deviate to pick people up at their homes or drop them off at their destinations. Doing so takes a lot of time. A lot of people would get fed up and they wouldn't ride because they're constantly deviating off to pick other people up. Costs a lot. And of course, if we have 40-foot buses, the street network doesn't allow us to run those buses on those streets. And frankly, people in their homes don't want big buses going down their streets. So that means we really have to stay, largely speaking, on arterials and collector type streets. So knowing this, we have a trade-off that we have to make. And when I talk about this, I don't just mean TriMet, I mean every transit district in the world is making this trade-off. We have to decide, we only have so much money and we can only afford so many buses. And we have to decide, do we spread the peanut butter or do we concentrate it, right? So here in this image, and I want to, shout out to Jarrett Walker and Associates. These are their images and I'm borrowing from them. But in this image on the left, you see kind of a map. It's some streets. The dots represent people. You can see there's a lot of density of people along two of the streets, and then people are more spread out among the other streets. And we have a choice. Do we spread the service out to serve as many people as possible and get as much coverage as we can? Although recognizing that doing so means that those services won't run very often. Or do we concentrate the service in the areas where people are, closest together and most likely to ride? Now, I would say these are both the extremes. And I would say that TriMet, as you'll probably learn within this presentation, really kind of falls in the in-between here. So trying to maximize ridership while providing as much coverage as possible. And when you look at the TriMet map, this is the TriMet system map. There are not a lot of arterials or collector streets in the TriMet district that we're not already on. You could ride from Clackamas Transit Center all the way up to North Portland and St. John's in one seat. You don't have to transfer. You can't always say that. Oftentimes you do have to transfer to ride across the region, but oftentimes it's just one transfer, maybe two. But our coverage is pretty darn extensive around the region. But the real question now is, yes, that's fine, but are we really serving the service enough? Yes, you may have a bus come to my area, but does it come off frequently enough? Does it come late enough at night, early enough in the morning, etc.? And so that's really what this study was about. Now, I want to back up and note that Clackamas County actually did this type of analysis twice before. Once in 2013 when developing the transportation system plan, and again in 2021 when developing the transportation development plan. In both cases, you worked with a consultant named Kittleson and Associates. So as we went through this process, we also hired Kittleson and Associates to help us with this project. And in both times when you did it, and in this time, we used something called the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual. This is basically a manual that provides standards for transit, and you can kind of grade yourself on how well you're meeting those standards using this manual. The early editions had grades A through F, and if you're familiar with how intersection throughput is measured, that is also A through F. So this was an effort to kind of create a manual similar to that. Over time, getting feedback from transit providers, and I think even some in Clackamas County, it was decided that really you need to get away from the A through F grades because things are a little more nuanced than just slapping a general grade on it. One of the challenges with the TCQSM is it doesn't peg it didn't peg the grade to the market. So, for example, in an area where there weren't, let me back up. So it would say, service in a high market should have service running every 10 minutes or better. And the service, it would say service that runs every 10 minutes or better gets an A, and service that runs hourly gets an F. Well, that would mean that a service in an area that is relatively rural and only comes every hour, out once an hour, gets an F. But one might wonder, well, yes, but is 10-minute service really, required for this area or the right fit for this area? And maybe 60-minute service is the right fit and it should get a higher grade. So as we started this process, we said, well, let's do this analysis, but let's base it on the market. So the next question for ourselves was, well, what is the transit market? How do we decide what the market is across the region? And so what we did is we took 10 factors that are, generally accepted in the industry for factors that kind of give you a sense of people's propensity to ride transit. I won't go through all of these. You can see them here. But the big one is population density, median household income, employment density, and low and medium wage jobs. I'll just focus on those four. Those are kind of the most common you see, but you can see some other reasons why, other factors that kind of contribute to one's propensity to ride a transit. So using this information, we scored every single census block group in the entire TriMet district based on the presence of these different factors. And then we took all those scores and we broke them up into quartiles, and then we mapped them. And here's our map. So what it's showing is the darker color means the market is stronger for transit. So those factors that I showed scored highly in those areas. And then the lighter the color, the less strong the market is. And so let's look at Clackamas County. Some of this shouldn't be surprising to us, right? Clackamas Town Center. That makes sense that would have a strong market, lots of jobs, lots of retail jobs. There's housing, dense housing around there. That makes a lot of sense. McLaughlin makes a lot of sense, right? There's housing not far away. There's lots of jobs. It's kind of more dense number of people. Downtown Oregon City, downtown Lake Oswego, but also areas that aren't as strong, right? So areas kind of in the Stafford area and in near West Lynn and Lake Oswego, where the housing and the commercial activities are more separate from one another. People are more spread out. So it's not surprising, none of this is super surprising. Estacada, small community separated from the rest of the region by a large rural area. None of this is too surprising, I think. And so then the next thing we did is we said, well, okay, well, where's the transit service in these areas? And let me zoom in on Clackamas County. And let me explain the colors. The colors, the shade of green is just showing you the average market score along that line. So for example, I mentioned the bus line that goes from Oregon City all the way up to North Portland. Well, obviously, going between Oregon City and North Portland, you're going to go through all sorts of markets, right? And so the color on that line is showing the average market score for that line, right? So that kind of gives us a sense of, well, how often should this bus run? Where, how many hours a day should it run, et cetera. And you can see, again, those markets that I mentioned that were strong have a greater average score. So Clackamas Town Center, you can see the darker lines in Clackamas Town Center, McLaughlin, downtown Oregon City, all the way to Clackamas Community College, a darker color because those are stronger markets for transit service. So now we said, okay, now we know what the markets. Oh, wait, actually, I want to point out real quickly. This is a map from your transit development plan that was published in 2021. Although I believe this map is using data from 2015. And what you can see in this map is it's showing kind of green are areas where TriMet serves, and you all basically did a similar type of analysis, although I believe you just looked at population density. But what is the propensity of transit? Where are the areas where people are most likely to ride? And it looks pretty similar to what we have. So green is showing areas that TriMet serves, that are has a strong propensity or transit supportive is what it says. Pink are showing areas that we don't serve that are transit supportive, and yellow are showing areas that are not transit supportive yet TriMet serves. And what I would tell you, first off, you can see the green, and that looks pretty similar to what I was showing. Clackamas Town Center looks pretty strong. McLaughlin looks pretty strong. Downtown Oregon City, strong. Downtown Lake Oswego, etc. But also, I'd like to really highlight both the pink. A lot of those pink areas are areas where we now provide stiff funds to Clackamas County to operate the shuttle services. So that's in the Clackamas industrial area, in Oregon City. West Lynn, we now have line 153 serving that pink area. So those pink areas are largely covered. And then, yet we're also showing yellow areas where we currently serve that are not transit supportive, but we're providing that coverage, right? So if we go back to the earlier slides and the trade-off between focusing on ridership versus coverage, we're really trying to, I feel like we're really somewhere in between in terms of providing the service in the areas where people will most likely to ride, but also providing coverage. So next is, okay, but are we providing enough service? Like maybe coverage is fine, but are we providing enough service on those bus lines? And there's really two good ways to look at how service is provided. One is frequency, how often the bus will run. And then the other is how many hours a day is the bus actually in operation. So I won't read through all this, but basically what this is showing is looking at our markets, right, in areas where we scored a high market, that should have service that operates every 15 minutes or better. And where we have the lowest markets, that should be service that operates, basically at less than 45 minutes, right? So anywhere between 45 minutes and say an hour, we'll say. And then in between, you have, 16 to 30 minutes and 31 to 45 minutes. So that's how frequently the service runs. I realize I'm running out of time, so I'll pick it up. So when we look at the results here, and let me speed up to Clackamas County, what we're showing here is green shows areas where we're higher than the standard. Blue shows areas where we're at the standard. And yellow shows areas, bus lines, where we're below the standard. And what I would point out to you here is the two that really jump out here are line 34, which is the line along River Road, River Road, and then it actually goes up to Johnson Creek, down to Linwood, to Harmony, the Harmony Clackamas County Community College campus, and then to Clackamas Town Center. And then also line 156, and a little bit of line 38. But then when we do a little bit closer look here, what we find is that in those areas where the market is strong, so we'll take the 34 here, the areas where the market is strong, there's lots of transit service. And also down here in Oregon City. And then in those areas where the market is weaker, yep, we're running below that standard. But what's giving it that standard is these areas where there's lots of service. The same can be said here on line 156 at Clackamas Town Center, where it's showing there's a strong market. Yes, the 156 doesn't meet the standard, but look at all the other service here. And then in this area of Happy Valley, there is also line 155. So there's overlap in these. Lastly, I would point out line 38. Line 38, despite our every effort, we seem to get low ridership on this line, and so we struggle with that one. Lastly, I would also point out line 291. This is a late night bus line. It says it runs through a high market, but it only operates when the max is not running. So it emulates max service when it's not running. Okay, let me speed up here a little bit. This is focusing on the service span. How many hours a day do we run service? So if it's a high market, we should have more than 18 hours a day. If it's a low market, we should have less than 12 hours a day. And then you could see the standards in between. And when we look at the region and specifically at Clackamas County, We have one bus line that is below standard. Most lines are higher than the recommended standard, with a few that are at the recommended standard. And so again, with just like what we had seen with line 156, line 152, in the areas where there's lots of demand, there's lots of lines serving all over that area. Same here over at Clackamas Town Center. In the area where there's low demand, yes, it is the only line in that area. So you can kind of see it's a little bit like a horseshoe in that manner. So in conclusion, and I apologize for rushing through, but in conclusion, what we found is the routes, I should say, the consultant found, from a coverage standpoint, routes met or exceeded the market in Clackamas County. And again, I would refer to the own map from Clackamas County that more or less shows the same thing as our map. From a frequency standpoint, most routes met or exceeded the market in Clackamas County. Lines 34 and 156 didn't meet the frequency standard, but had substantial route overlap. And line 291 only operates late at night, so we wouldn't expect there to be lots of ridership then. And then service span, again, most routes met or exceeded the market in Clackamas County. While line 152 didn't meet the service span standard, there was substantial overlap in the areas where there is a strong demand for service. And again, line 291 only operates late at night, so we wouldn't expect it to have quite a large service span. I last want to just thank Karen Burig and Jeff Owen from Clackamas County for consulting with us throughout this process. We met with them every other week throughout the process, and they gave us a lot of great guidance throughout. So with that, I will stop sharing and open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Tom. I apologize to everyone having some technical difficulties this morning. So yeah, any questions, please raise your hand. Tom, I just want to make a comment here. I'm a little, I know this was based on fixed route service and for even some of the reasons you touched on, that is not really applicable to, I think, the geography, the topography. When we look at these maps, we're looking at this flat one-dimensional map, and you're showing your areas of strength. When we look at the challenges for topography, whether that's Oregon City or West Linn or Lake Oswego, Oak Grove, market's going to be based on probably a walking score, as well as where people want to go. When you look at this map and you overlay that with the commute shed where people are going, it doesn't match up essentially. The other thing that's changed since all these studies was STIF, HB 2017, and now people are essentially all around the region that are in TriMet's district and outside TriMet's district are paying for service. So how do we connect people that are paying for the service, the 200,000 people, at least in Clackamas, they don't have access. They're paying for it, but they're not getting it. And also from the basic service of the employer-based services, if we're disconnecting employment needs and from employers, and we're focusing on these different metrics, I'm struggling to get the connection between those who pay and those who don't receive.
Well, thank you for that question, and I'm not sure where in the presentation you were able to come in. I started the presentation talking about the trade-off that we have to make, and it's not just a TriMet thing. Dwight, I'm sure you're making that same calculation yourself. There's not enough money to basically be Uber or Lyft, right? We can't pick people up at their homes and take them directly to their destinations. So we have to group people. And of the amount of service that we can pay for, do we try to focus that on corridors where people are living and working closer together, or do we spread that across the region, kind of spread the peanut butter, but that means the peanut butter's thinner, right? So the service doesn't run as frequently. I would say, particularly with Stiff, that we've done a pretty good job of kind of uh, you know kind of doing a little bit of both, right? We've added service, both fixed route service, but we've also created the regional coordination shuttle program that allows for the Oregon City shuttle, the Clackamas Industrial shuttle, the shuttle between Estacada, Clackamas Community College, and the Clackamas Community College shuttle from uh, 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 Clackamas Town Center. Additionally, we've provided funds to both Sandy and Smart to operate into the TriMet Service District. So, getting back to the original thing, we have constraints. There's only so much money, just like you all have constraints with all the different departments and your budgets that you have. And so we're trying to do as much as we can, but we recognize some people are going to have to walk to get to their service. And when they do, we're trying to provide them the best service that we can.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Tom, and we've had this conversation several times, but again, I think the paradigm is broken. And I know we're operating under this paradigm, and it's no secret that the areas where you have this great market index are relatively flat. And again, if you take a map and you base it on where people are paying and how much they're paying for transit, okay, just looking at that, if we had a map of the state or the region where people pay and how much they pay, right, and where they live, that's going to look tremendously different than these other maps. So I guess from again looking at it from how we pay and I would say this broken model and how that relates again to the commute shed, I think that the fact that they don't connect and we are in we're in this
Are you all there?
MPO. Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Tom,
Hello?
what's going on,
Hello?
Tom? We can hear you.
Oh, Tom,
Are
you were
you?
frozen for a bit.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Tom. Commissioner Stavis was responding to your comment.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't know where you phased out there, Tom. But
You were
I guess what I'm saying, I think overall the paradigm is kind of broken, and if you had a map of where people are actually paying or paying the most but not receiving or receiving, that's going to look tremendously different. The MPO has a responsibility for air quality. I think if you look at where people are going and the connections, it seems like we ought to be focusing on the commute shed from an air quality standpoint, as opposed to where the market is much easier or applicable. People that want to ride transit, and if they can't get to it, certainly there's going to be a lower propensity to walk, right? If the topography challenges are high. So you looked at only fixed route. Has there been any, I know that Metro is doing that study. We're going to hear more about that. But I think this region, I can tell you this region, the first committee I ever sat on, I've lived here for a long time and listened for people for a long time. For over 25 years, the ask in our area has been for a local shuttle. Because that's what works. I mean, I listen to my constituents. That's what works. That's what they need. They know they need something local. You're right. You can't run a 40-foot bus down to some of these roads in our neighborhoods. It doesn't work. And that's why, more investment in shuttles, I think would be, and it seems to be working for Washington County a lot better than it's working for us, but they have more resources. But I'll just stop there. I don't see any of their hands up. So anyone else want to jump in on this? Okay, Mayor Milch.
Thanks. You had that list of market factors that influence things, and with something like that, there's always a chicken and egg question. You try to improve density in certain areas, or focus on areas where income levels or density of development is a certain thing. That also correlates a little bit with topography. We don't see a lot of high density housing development in areas that are topographically challenged. That tends to be done in flat areas because that's easier to use. So that may be a reason for some of that correlation. But we also have a presentation coming up on the Community Connector Transit Study. Will that get us into addressing some of the issues about shuttles that Commissioner Savas has raised?
Yes.
Oh, Tom, you can go ahead. Mayor Milch, I was just going to say that the Community Connector Study is a metro study, so that is separate from TriMet, although we've been involved helping with that effort. So we'll learn more from Allie after this about that. And the other thing is, I would add that there are some places where housing units are going in topographically challenged areas. Happy Valley is one of them. We know that there are some locations in Happy Valley where they would like to see more service. And there are areas where it might be a higher market, but it's a big challenge for us to get up into those hills. And sometimes the road networks aren't built out to support a 40-foot bus driving on a hill like that. So we continue to have some challenges like that.
Okay, Commissioner, I am having a lot of technical difficulties this morning, so I apologize. Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, a question, Tom. So, when you look at that frequency versus coverage question, it seems to me as you move further out from the middle and you get in rural areas of Clackamas County, coverage becomes a bigger issue than the frequency, at least in my opinion, because fewer people can get reasonably to the bus. So when you do those scores, does the algorithm or however that service score is about, does it take into account the fact that as you move out and get into less dense areas, that coverage becomes kind of the deal breaker as to whether or not people can ride the bus more so than frequency? Does it account for that, or is it kind of one size fits all, whether you're in the middle of Portland or out in rural Clackamas County?
Well, I think that's where the market index comes into play, right? When you're out in those rural areas, recognizing that it's a rural area and people are more spread out, what should the frequency be? Are you there? Did I freeze again?
Tom, we can hear you just fine. Your face is just frozen.
Oh,
Keep going.
okay. Okay. So it's that's what the market index helps us decide there, right? So recognizing that this is a rural area and that 10-minute service might be too much, right? And you run a lot of empty buses. So what should that be? And then if we can right size it for the area, then that preserves money to either put more coverage elsewhere or to put more frequency in areas where the demand is higher.
And Commissioner Mitchell, one other point of clarification for you and for Commissioner Savas as well is that I do want to be clear that TriMet only has a portion of Clackamas County within our service district. And within our service district, only 18% of residents do not live within a half mile of a transit stop. So I want to be clear that only 18% of people in Clackamas County that are in the TriMet service district don't live within a half mile of that stop. And also acknowledging topography, Commissioner Savas' comments about a half mile is too far for some people, and it's farther than it seems in many locations. But that is just the standard that we've got to find some standard to pull a stat from, and that's what we've got there. So just want to be clear about who has access to transit in the district.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that comment, John. I always bristle a little bit when it comes to using percentages. If we're going to use percentages, let's use numbers. Let's use them both if we could. So and half a mile versus a quarter mile is another discussion that I guess we need to be at least for another day considering that we maybe mention both of those, the half mile and quarter mile access, and maybe walking scores. Counselor Anderson, you're up.
Hey, I appreciate this presentation. It's really helpful to see kind of the math that goes into trying to balance our frequency and connectivity. we've talked a little bit about this, John, and I know I've mentioned this at the C4 table, but having some type of our planning staff are already overburdened as is. Having some type of model zoning code around transit stops that we might want to see to allow for the intensity of development necessary to support transit services would be really helpful. Like there are a lot of cities here who want to have transit services. And it sounds like a lot of people are frustrated that they don't have the ridership necessary to justify buses, according to TriMet. And I think if you help us bridge that gap, that allows us to be better partners with TriMet to try and allow for the density needed to see what you can support a bus line route with. I have no sense of what the density per acre needs to be, but that would be super helpful. I think that's one. I think also, and maybe you would disagree with this, Commissioner Savas, but as we think about, okay, who's paying in for this and what benefit do they receive? Part of the benefit here that I see is if we're putting bus routes on the routes that will generate the most ridership and convert the most car trips to bus trips, we also see the largest reduction in traffic, which then benefits the people who maybe don't live close to the transit to be served by it, but then have a quicker commute into downtown Portland or the suburb where they work. And hopefully that has a large impact on them too. And I know it's not as good. I would much rather have a bus route near my house to be able to take than lower traffic. I think there's some benefit that's spread out across the whole system, even for the people who are in that 16% who aren't served by transit directly. And I totally take your point. A half-mile walk shed is not the same as a quarter-mile walk shed, especially in neighborhoods that are hilly and hard to walk.
Yeah, appreciate your comments. Yeah, I think the more data we have, based on data and diversion numbers that are being discussed right now in the 82nd Avenue Bat Lane discussion that are happening. I think diversion off the freeways because they're not have adequate capacity is creating a lot of havoc on some of the main corridors like 82nd Avenue, and adding more diversion puts more people in neighborhoods, more people get struck or hit. And so, injuries are up in this area and fatalities are up in this area. And I don't think we're taking a hard enough look at diversion, frankly. But point taken. Thank you. Next up on the list, Allie. Is it Allie? And again, I'm sorry for having difficulties this morning. But who's up next, Trent?
Yes, we have Allie Holmquist here from Metro, and everybody take a big breath. Everyone's having technical difficulties and floods and internet outages. The world is spinning. We're in a good place here in Clackamas County. We have plenty of time. We're good.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Trent. Yes, I am Allie Holmquist with Metro here, and I am going to be giving an update on the Community Connector Transit Study. I wanted to make a couple contextual framing remarks before I jump into the details. First, I am going to JPACT this week. This presentation is going to look a little bit different. Staff wanted you to get a little bit more of the into the weeds technical look that the staff had received. So I'm gonna get a little bit more into the details than you'll see at JPACT. The other thing I just want to mention, since we did have the really great TriMet study and those folks are in the room, that this study is really more of a visionary exercise. What Tom was presenting to you was based on, real service and budgets. And what we're doing is, because the regional transportation plan sets our transportation vision to help us think about how we want to fund things and where we could put money to get to the future that we want. It's just a little bit different of an exercise. And we weren't bound by some of the constraints that TriMet was around the vehicle size and that sort of thing. We were able to look at some kind of new things and technologies and shuttles, which was of interest to this group. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of that context for how this is a little bit different. We hope that there will be funding available in the future. When we started this process, there was a lot more opportunity that was available through the federal government, but we think that that could happen again, and we would be ready for that. So I am going to talk about our shuttle opportunity areas today. Just a quick reminder that when I was last presenting to this group, we were talking about how we were going to identify those, and that was around 3 key questions: where we're seeing transit need, and there is a little bit of an opportunity for service, where those areas demonstrate transit supportiveness, using a lot of the same factors that Tom went over, and then what do other things tell us about the transit market, including things like community engagement, excuse me, and then local plans. I just wanted to mention, to get to the things I'm going to talk about today, it's been a really iterative process. We took the feedback from this group in JPACT and really took it to heart around including more local feedback in our process. And so we've developed some initial concepts and taken that back to local staff and community, done some refinement, taken it back. And so this has been, this is sort of, revision 3, V3 or more, if you will. And we're going to continue to do that. So we're in another phase of where we're collecting more feedback, and then we're going to do some more refinements. Quickly, I want to mention that we did hold a local workshop as well. So in addition to having more local representatives on our transit working group, we held a broader workshop that we invited all of the MTAC, TPAC, and other staff to attend, where we focused on some questions about how to make service useful, how the opportunities we were identifying aligned with local priorities, and how Metro could provide the best support in the future. Just want to quickly say that one of the things that we did in addition to these sort of service opportunity areas is we identified some areas for mobility hubs as well. And so these are where lots of different types of transit come together, similar to transit centers, but is broader because it could be buses as well, buses and shuttles. And so these are areas where we can look at investments that can better make those transfers more convenient and comfortable. And also, again, that active transportation element too. So wayfinding and making sure that people getting off the bus also have comfortable and convenient access to their next destination. One of the things that we did do in response to feedback was add the future hubs that you see on the screen here. That's where we envision, based on our plans, more of those connections in the future because of those planned networks, but they might not exist today. And I wanted to mention these because we did factor these into some of the opportunity areas that I'll be talking about in just a moment. And actually, that's a perfect segue into the service area opportunities. So using that methodology, we arrived at a couple different opportunity types. The first is where we are seeing that need and gap, and we think that a transit solution to fill it is potentially possible. And then the second is where we are seeing areas that have a bit of a gap based on that walking distance, like we talked about with the level of service study or the topography. But it might be that the roadway network is not really something that's super supportive of transit, or that walking distance, that half mile like we were talking about, it might be just outside of that. And so it is a little bit of a tiny area to serve with transit. And so another solution like micromobility or maybe car share might just be more efficient for that area. And so that's the difference with those blue areas that you're seeing on the map. And then I'm going to talk about a few of these example areas within Clackamas County to provide a little bit more detail. So the first one is C1 here in Lake Oswego. So this is in the area, the neighborhoods of Oak Creek, Westlake, and Holly Orchard. And there are some connection opportunities because we want to be thinking about additive service and not duplicative. We could be connecting to TriMet's line 78 and then also lines 37 and 38. There are some key destinations here. There's some employment on Cruise Way with some daytime shift jobs. And then there's some residential areas nearby. They are lower density, but there are some connection points we could make. This is one of those areas where, as you can see with the roadway network, It's not super connected, so it does pose some challenges for transit. So we're thinking about whether a community connector could be an option here to provide transit during hours that than when the peak only service is being provided. So this would be more of like a temporal gap filling. This would be something similar to what oh my gosh, Multnomah County did with one of their shuttles. But this could be an area where something like car share or micromobility actually could be more efficient too. The next area is Happy Valley. So this is around the southeast Johnson Creek Boulevard area, north of Idleman and east of Southeast 92nd Avenue. One of the challenges with this area is it's actually quite big. There are some services already operating here. There is TriMet's line 155, for instance. And then also some service from Sam as well. But it might be a little bit big for a traditional shuttle. This might be more of an on-demand service area. There are some key destinations here. There's some parks actually, like Scooters Mountain Nature Park, Happy Valley Park, and then also connecting to Clackamas Town Center. And then we also heard some interest from Native community for one of the sites that's located down here, Auntie's Place, I think it's called. So those might all be good destination points. And there was a lot of excitement about this opportunity in our local workshop for thinking about how we can really leverage the service that's there, but make some better connections within this area. And then the next one, oh, and I'm just realizing McLaughlin Oatfield, this is actually where Auntie's Place is. My apologies. But this is the residential Oatfield neighborhood. So south of 224 and east of 99 East. And so this has some really good service on line 33 on McLaughlin. And then there's additional service on line 29 and then also line 32 that a connector could connect to. This is another place where microtransit, that on-demand type of service, could be a solution. And that could connect to, again, some parks, North Clackamas Park, which has weekday only service now. And then also the Southeast Park Avenue Max Station. And then just let me check. Yeah, and there was also some excitement about this area as well, being able to make some connections between some of this TriMet service where we're not quite reaching today. And then this is the last area. This is an example in South Wilsonville. SMART has studied this area quite a bit and actually provided service here in the past. And so there is this sort of small gap right near the park, but actually it's just outside of the walk shed, and service that has reached here in the past has not been successful because it's really the services that is provided is really not that far, and so there is a lot of access here. But it is one of those areas that can show up when you just do the kind of data exercise. And then when you look a little bit deeper, most of this is the park, which does have some access you can see here in this yellow hexagon. So this would be an example where we are seeing, maybe some just other types of pedestrian and bicycle connections that could really solve for this area. And then I just wanted to mention that we are gearing up right now for the next phase, which is doing some more work on readiness for these areas and identifying which areas are more ready and then which areas are based more on kind of future transit plans, getting more into sussing out the opportunity type, if it is transit or if it is some of these other types of solutions. And then that is something that we're planning on bringing back to the committees in May. And we're also working on a suite of tools that will support this work. We have a mobility hub toolkit, an implementation guide that we're working on with the transit working group. We're working on some information about governance and funding strategies, some best practices we might be able to apply moving forward, and then also a specific parks transit access strategy. And so we'll have some more information about those two that we can provide in May. And then the idea is that this would wrap up with a report for acceptance around September. So with that, I am going to actually go ahead and stop sharing and Chair, turn it back over to you for discussion.
Great. Well, thank you, Ally. Your work there that you and Metro are doing gives us some promise and hope, so it's appreciated. Questions for Ally? Councilor Baumgartner.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that presentation. I'm really excited about in West Lynn, of course, as we've talked about, topography is a challenge and lack of density is a challenge. We have the plan right now in the concept phase for our Highway 43 vision plan, and I'm really hoping we can take that opportunity to work with whoever partners would make sense to help us maximize our planning around transit. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, overall, I think that I totally get and understand the built environment versus, suburban areas, for example, versus high density areas where there's dense housing. It would be maybe great maybe to kind of, thinking about this a little bit deeper, if there was a heat map that showed where how much people pay for transit per household and around the region, and then overlay that with the households that are receiving transit, I think it would be quite the contrast. And I think at the end of the day, I think the stiff change things when we start taking monies from people's paychecks for that last mile. I just think that there's an obligation to try to serve that, and I think that being flexible and looking beyond fixed route service is probably the fairest way to perhaps look at changing the paradigm or looking at solutions that reach to people that don't have access to transit. John and then Christine Lewis.
Commissioner, if I could just respond very quickly to your comment just then. I would say that there is probably a very distinct difference between the people who pay the most in taxes and the people who use transit the most. And we do, in fact, design our system to best serve the people who have the least, and that is one of the communities that we try hardest to serve. So I would expect that you would see a big distinction between where the most service is and where the highest need is. But I would say that it is, in fact, designed that way in many cases. Not in all, but in many.
Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thanks so much. In direct response to the presentation, I just want to really reflect that I think Metro staff have done a really wonderful job of getting deep in to the areas that they're doing the study, and the texture of that presentation has developed a lot since the last time C4 saw it. And frankly, I can tell staff are spending a lot of time not just with maps and data, but actually interacting with community down here. So want to lift up my team at Metro. I think this is a great example of Metro being very responsive to community ask. We actually started talking about the potential for the study literally 4 years ago. We were trying to finish some things before we could start this. I kind of wish we had started it a year ahead of when we did, but we only have so much staff capacity at certain times. So I do think that we're going to just have to keep pushing to make sure that we get some of the finalization. But Commissioner Savas, along the lines of where you're shifting conversation, I think it's important to understand that every single mode of transportation is subsidized. And we put money into infrastructure to support all modes because mobility is a public good. And I think it's an interesting shift to be really hyper focused on an idea of user pay with transit only when we're also having that parallel discussion, frankly, in automobile travel. You know, this community was pretty loud and proud, no tolls. And now we're also in a potentially no new gas tax environment. So I don't think that these are disconnected conversations about how we pay for these systems that are subsidized. And yes, transit is subsidized more than road infrastructure for cars. But let's talk about where these subsidies come from. Let's talk about how those choices are made. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to continue to put money into these infrastructure systems that may be proportionate to need and use and not necessarily who pays. And we're going to have to decide what is the minimum level of service appropriate, but it's not always going to be I pay something so I get something great. It's I pay something so I have an opportunity, but it's not going to be the best opportunity. The best opportunity in transit is going to be in the high density areas and the high need areas. That's just there's no place that can provide it otherwise. So I think this is a great leaping off point and probably just one piece of a bigger discussion.
Well, thank you, Counselor, for that. I think there's I agree with some of what you said, but I would say that the tolling conversation was more about how, not if we pay, right? C4 and a number of the cities in Clackamas County came out really strong against tolling because it was about the how, not if we should pay, right? On the same token as C4 and the cities have not come out against or being involved in this measure that's more in the state realm with this transportation package. So I think a number of us in this room, if not all of us in this room, recognize we need more resources. And I don't think anyone here in this room is the tip of the spear of that referendum or signaling that we shouldn't be paying for surface transportation or whatever was in that package. So acknowledge, yes, I think we do need to talk about it, and I we will make sure we set that table ideally, and your help would be appreciated. Thank you for your input. Ali, thank you for your presentation. Looking forward to seeing more. And next up, I'm getting my computer back kind of working again. We have we're going to shift over to MPAC and Mayor Buck. If you didn't already know it, my job this morning when he contacted me this morning was to tell him he wasn't able to make it here today. You probably realize he's not here. So I'm going to shift over to our Metro Future Vision Commission, and we have Councillor Gabriel Blog from Gladstone who's presenting.
She's on the way over.
Okay. And if there's anyone in the room that wants to fill in any other thing with MPAC on behalf of Mayor Buck, please message me with the chat.
Yeah, maybe a quick note to all the staff who do the committee updates here who are part of the agenda. We're going to politely push that over towards the back part of the agenda since we had a bit of a delayed start here and we're just making a couple of adjustments, but we'll still try to get to those opportunities. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gabrielle Blaug. I'm a counselor in Gladstone, and I am also on the Metro Future Vision Commission. I apologize for the quality of my slides. I'm on injured reserve right now, and so working my computer is a little challenging. So I just wanted to give like a brief overview of the work that we are doing on the Future Vision Commission. So the charge is that we want to come up with a vision for what the region looks like in 50 years. And to do that, we've been talking a bit about, what is a vision, what makes a vision future ready, including things like focusing on external drivers of change that will impact the region. And so that we can, base our future vision in likely outcomes. So we also want it to be informed by lived expertise, and we will be doing that with engagement practices, including with youth in the area and artists. And then we're bringing in a series of subject matter expertise. So we will be coming up to speed on, what various experts think about, in particular about various subject matter. And then we will also be basing this on community input. And so have I shared my screen with everybody? I am not sure.
You are not sharing your screen, but you should have access to do it.
Okay, great. So I was going to go ahead. So we're just now getting into the engagement section of things. And so we are finalizing our engagement plan. And we do have a timeline. Sorry, I'm trying to look at, I usually don't use this computer for sharing. Sorry.
Is there anything I can help with, counselor?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's one of those mornings, so don't feel bad.
It's going around.
I
If
believe
you're
we have Metro staff listening who might be able to share the slides. Is that
Oh, okay.
that would help you?
Yeah, I'm looking for my project timeline overview.
Trent, Laura, I think is in the attendees. If you could promote her to try and assist.
Thanks.
Okay, Laura Combs, is that who we're talking about?
Yeah, she's
I-
the staff support.
Okay, great. I also have a packet pulled up here too, but I'll bring Laura over.
Yeah, so I included our last slides from our last minute meetings. And again, sorry, I had this done yesterday, and so I'm not the most with it today.
Just talk through a timeline. I can pull up our timeline.
Sure. Oh, did I get it?
Well, we have a shared screen somewhere, and so
Yay! Thank you again. Like I said, I'm sorry for not having this pulled up a little bit earlier. So the commission will be meeting for 18 months, and we have begun our meetings, obviously. So we have adopted our commission, and we are now currently in our engagement strategy. And so this will be going on through most of the rest of the meetings that we have scheduled. We will begin sort of the vision drafting in January, and that will also be continuing on through there. So you can kind of see here is the rest of that timeline for the 18 months. So we will be doing outreach. So the commission is fairly well represented for the region. That was, part of its charge. And so the engagement strategy will be rolled out, I think probably, we're looking at mostly in the summertime. And we will be, working with community groups. And so as well as youth. So there's a youth component to this, which I think is really important since they will be the ones who will be actually living this 50-year vision. So we have a summit coming up with them. So if you've got anybody in your communities that might be interested in joining the youth component to this, I would be happy to get names and other information so that we can start reaching out and forming these committees. I know that they have a plan for the engagement. We'll be doing sort of our meetings. I think with the youth portion, will be starting in the summertime, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think it will be very, very interesting. The other sort of bit that I was going to share is just that I will probably for Clackamas County be coming around and doing part of that outreach as well. I'm excited to sort of look at all of the factors that will go into the vision. So factors that we are considering are the vision will have hang on a sec. The vision will be focused on specific areas, including things like what do we, we'll be looking at transit, obviously, because that affects things, housing, community engagement opportunities, so placemaking, and the like. So again, I'm sorry for the not smooth presentation today, but we are in fact just getting started. We've had about 3 meetings. So if anybody has questions, please feel free.
Okay, Mayor Milch.
Thank you, Gabrielle. I see from the materials that were provided in our packet that a lot of your focus is on potential growth, on economic development, and also what was the third one? Quality of life. And some of those things are kind of have been things that we haven't looked at too much in C4 or in C4 Metro, but I'm glad that there's that broad focus on recognizing how those things can change our communities, what impact we can have on them, and how they interact with each other. If we had a ribbon cutting, you were there, of a little park in our community, and it's one of those things that adds to quality of life. But we like to think that because the chairman of the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce was there too, that he sees it as something that also contributes to economic development. So the interaction of all these factors and trying to accommodate growth in our community is a good reason to have a commission like this. So I'm real pleased that we're represented and that the region is represented well by people who are working on these things. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to make these both aspirational and executable, right? So like we can all envision a utopia, but the reality is that we are constrained by funds and various other things to make this utopia vision come to pass. So I'm excited that we are taking into account all of the various factors that will lead to a different local look than what we have currently. And even just the sort of the subject of what does growth look like in the region, how much growth do we have, has been very interesting because it's very hard to predict growth, I think, in some ways. So we have a disparity of what growth looks like. Is it somewhere in the 2% region? Is it somewhere in the 25% region? And so we will be working through, those sorts of conflicting growth versions, I think, as we get further along in the process.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate your presentation and appreciate your good work and dedication or commitment to this process. Oh, Counselor Lewis.
Sure, thanks. The Future Vision Commission's January meeting will be in Oregon City. So I just think it's really important that we go and sit and show our enthusiasm from the Clackamas perspective.
Yes, please.
Yeah, great. So I presume that'll be marketed as far as messaging and invitations and solicitation by Metro itself, right? As far as the outreach.
I know it's like a publicly posted meeting. I don't know if our marketing plan has like social media or any of those dynamics, but I do plan personally to recruit, and obviously everybody in this membership would be on an email list for me to send invites to, and I'd hope the counselor would also be extending the invites.
Okay, great.
Yep, the meeting will be January 15th at the Clackamas County Development Services Building from 4 to 6.
Oh, I know where that's at. I see Commissioner Helm has her hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's something you kind of have to hunt for. I haven't seen specific invitations to these Future Vision meetings, so I would love to be on the invite list so that they do pop up on my calendar as well. And especially this one in Oregon City, I think it would be very important for all of us to attend.
Okay, great. Well, we'll move on. Trent, I'm going to let you drive the rest of this. We've had a bumpy ride. It's one of those like an airplane ride. You don't expect turbulence, but sometimes you get it. So here we are.
And the plane still lands, to keep that analogy hopeful for everybody. So I have both the TPAC team and the MTAC team over here. And how about Jeff? Why don't you start us off and then make sure that there's time, please, for the MTAC team to finish up.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you for having me. If Will Farley does join, happy to yield to him. Just here to give you a very brief TPAC report. This is the Metro TPAC group that supports JPAC occurring tomorrow morning. In the very back of your packet there, we just have a short 2 pages that bring you up to date on a few of the things that TPAC has discussed at the last meeting that also have a bit of crossover to topics you discussed today in this meeting and tomorrow morning at JPAC. So at the last meeting, we did start off, of course, with fatal crash updates from around the region, touched on transit ridership. There are a number of MTIP amendments that are kind of the more the housekeeping and the business of some of the projects in the region. And then we focused a bit on a couple of main topics. The annual Safe Streets for All update. This is an annual report that is coming to JPAC that talks about all the different safety efforts underway and really looks for JPAC and Council kind of guidance and direction. So there's a few bullets in the packet there about Safe Streets for All and continued safety efforts all around the region, including all around Clackamas County. And then the second topic that we covered was the Community Connector Transit Study with Allie, just as you heard today. That's also coming to JPAC tomorrow morning. The only final note there I'll mention is for next month, looking ahead into the new year, the TPAC date is just 1 week later than the first Friday, just so it doesn't fall the morning after New Year's holiday. So the next TPAC meeting would be January 9th. So with that, I'll pause and just welcome any questions, but a lot of crossover with your topics already discussed.
No hands. Jeff, you're off the hook. Thanks for the update. All right, Jamie and Laura.
Good morning, C4 Metro. Now I'm frozen as well. Okay, this is going swimmingly. Laura and I are here this morning to provide just a quick update on MTAC, which we are heading to right after this meeting ends in just a few moments. Laura, if it's okay with you, I'll look back at what we did last month and leave to you to share what we'll be doing today. So last month we had a conversation and presentation about the Gladstone Town Center project overview. It was a great presentation, a lot of great work going on in Gladstone. Really excited to see all of the conversation that's coming from that. A lot of forward thinking there and an excellent project. So we got an overview of that from Jackie Betts, the city manager over there in Gladstone. We then heard about the walkable design standards, basically a set of state requirements for walkable design standards that we have available to us to support our work. And then lastly, we spent a lot of time talking about the regional housing coordination strategy. There was some movement. We talked about that here before, especially around the elements that are tied to the supportive housing services and the affordable housing pieces. We work closely with our partners in H3S to make sure that those items were really reflective of things that would be helpful to them or as much as possible. So there were some changes that came out of the MTAC recommendation to MPAC, but that was the majority of our conversation. Turn it over to you now, Laura.
All right, thank you. We continue to see additional overlap with some of these topics, getting around to the various groups. So today we will talk about our annual transportation safety update and then also the community connector transit study as well. That's it. Here to answer any questions.
And I see no hands. You are both off the hook. And that is the extent of our agenda today. And judging by how everything has gone so far, I think we would all love to be out of this meeting.
Yes. Again, thank you everyone for your patience. And again, Mayor Buck had a unforeseen sudden appointment that he had to attend to this morning, Lake Oswego City Business, so he could not attend. So his apologies conveyed. So thank you all. And if we don't see you all before the holidays, happy and safe holidays to you all.
Happy holidays.
Take care.